This video is going to go over how to write a good resume specifically aimed at college students. This will apply to most students, but especially to those who are maybe freshmen or sophomores. I've talked about trying to get internships as soon as possible, and you may be wondering what to even include on your resume to stand out for those jobs when you really have no experience. And don't worry, I was wondering the same thing, but hopefully this video will help you out. If you've done research on creating a good resume, then a lot of this you already know, but I will include examples of segments from different quality resumes I found as well. So let's just go through all the big sections on most resumes. Most resumes were ordered a little differently, but I'm going to put what I just typically saw. First at the top, you should put your name and contact information, including email, phone number, address, and I even see people include their LinkedIn profile. I did some researching and the general consensus was yes, include your LinkedIn profile. It can only help so long as you have a decently well-made LinkedIn. Next on the resume usually comes education. This is where you include your school, your degree, your minor if applicable, your concentration or specialization if applicable, and your GPA or major GPA. Honestly, pick which one is higher. Your major GPA is basically what your GPA is if you don't account for irrelevant courses such as general eds, like psychology for an engineering student. If you did great in those irrelevant courses and they boosted your GPA, then just put your normal GPA there. Colleges may put you on the dean's list if you get above a certain GPA, and if you've achieved this at all, list it in the education section. The next section differs for a lot of resumes, but if you're in college and especially don't have much experience, then relevant coursework can come next. I see this in most college resumes. Are you a chem major who took their first general chemistry course? Then put it on there. If you took your first programming course as an engineer, again put it on there. Any courses in your major or ones that are at least relevant to your major, put them on. I even saw engineers throw in that they took a writing course for engineers. Most didn't, but it did come up. Next, I'm going to put skills, and no matter who you are, I promise there is something relevant you can put here. So if you learned any programming languages, include those. Even if you've barely gotten any experience or the class just started, it at least shows you've gotten exposure. The programming languages can be listed in this next section as well, but have you used any computer software? It could be MATLAB, AutoCAD, or SolidWorks, which a lot of engineers use. Or have you used Microsoft Word, Excel, and/or PowerPoint? Nearly every college resume I saw when researching for this video included those last three, and they could apply to any major or career. Even though they are simpler, make sure to include them. For majors outside of STEM, I've seen people put video editing software they knew because it was related to their major, or Photoshop, or even social media marketing for maybe a business major. Then also list hardware or equipment you've used. Maybe you've used an oscilloscope, or you've done welding or machining of some type. Maybe you've done some type of testing on a specific machine. Once you do your first lab in college, you should have some stuff to put in this section. Or for science majors, you can put laboratory skills. This was extremely common to see on their resumes. So if you've done an infrared spectroscopy lab or an electrophoresis lab, include those as well. I know those were really specific, but you will get there. And once you've done some kind of important lab or lab technique, you can then put it on your resume. Do you speak multiple languages? That was something I also saw in a good amount of resumes. I even saw where one person listed their typing speed because it applied to the career that they wanted. Make it somewhat related to the job that you're going for, but there's a lot that you can put in this section. Next came projects or labs. This is where you list any types of projects or hands-on experience you've gotten relevant to your major. For those with more experience, try to include projects that are most applicable to the job you are trying to get, as well as ones that are newer for you. Your freshman year projects won't be as important as your senior project, for example. Maybe you're in business and you did a marketing campaign for a certain product. And don't forget to describe it a little with bullet points, like design surveys to assess customer demands. Or maybe you're a history major and you did a research paper. You can include any big labs you did as an engineer or science major, whether it was for a required class or for a club. Often when it comes to final projects in a class, even though everyone does one, they will all be different, so you'll still have that uniqueness on the resume. As an engineer, I never included any of my weekly labs, but anything that took me really more than 2 weeks to complete was something I would consider to throw on my resume. Next came experience or work history or something similar. The obvious here is to include jobs or internships that you've had, and the more relevant to the career you want, the better. So apart from the obvious of including like an intern position at a company directly related to your major, you can include tutoring or being a teacher's assistant. I saw people who included they were a resident advisor for their dorms, or you were a lifeguard, or even a cashier. Include what you can. Especially for those who are younger, if you've got no experience related to your major, this still at least says, hey, someone else has hired me. And again, use bullet points to explain what you did or what you got out of that job. Then at the bottom came leadership or involvement or something similar. This had a wide range of things that you can put. This can include clubs that you joined at your school. You can include Greek life if you were a part of it, any charity organizations you joined, and if you assumed any leadership roles, then definitely include those as well. But plenty of people put things like they were in college band, in the Boy Scouts, volunteered at a basketball camp, played intramural football, and so on. If you have lots of experience, then you don't really need these last things that might not be as related to a job you're going for. But for those who are younger, again, just try to get what you can. Most freshman and sophomore resumes I saw had stuff just like this. Now for some general resume tips. First is to keep it one page. More than that is for people with much more experience, which doesn't really apply to college students. These next two kind of go together, and first is to not use first person pronouns, and the second is to use action verbs. Words like created, customized, performed, introduced, launched, analyzed, and a bunch of others that I'll list here. Remember when I talked about describing a job and I put assisted students one-on-one in Calc 1 and 2? Your sentences should be somewhat like this, such that they start with an action verb and don't contain a first person pronoun, like I assisted with something. And notice how these aren't even really complete sentences, which is okay. You just need to make them as descriptive as possible. Additionally, when it comes to the jobs or experience, there was an average of about 3 to 4 bullet points for each describing what the student did. So you don't need too much detail. Then generally speaking, don't include references or any mention of them on your resume. There may be situations where you can, but usually if they want references, they will request them. Make sure to list everything in each section in reverse chronological order, so put your most recent experience first, and then go back from there as you go down the resume. Also use relevant keywords. Did you know that they have applicant tracking systems, which is software that can scan thousands of resumes and pick which people are the best fit for the job? How does the software do this? By searching resumes for keywords. So if you are applying for a job that says requirements proficient in MATLAB, then you better include the word MATLAB on your resume. Or else it's possible your resume will never be seen by a human. Look at the qualifications and job description section of the job listing and make sure you list various important keywords that you see. And below in the description I have attached my resume from my first year in college that I was luckily able to find, as well as my last year's resume that I used to search for full-time jobs. So you can see the differences, but also how I was able to add things even as a freshman. And when it comes to formatting, there are plenty of websites out there to help you, but feel free to use either of mine if you'd like as well. You can download them to a Word document and just switch out the information. When it comes to formatting, there isn't an issue with just using anything that you can find, and I want you guys to have the easiest time possible when making a resume. And lastly, remember this was more of a broad video. Resumes differ and may include different sections that I didn't include, or they won't include sections that I talked about. So make sure to do your own research. This should give you an idea of how to write one as a college student. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I'd also like to thank our supporters on Patreon. We really appreciate the help from you guys. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.